Hi, everybody. This is Peter from Portal to Ascension. And how are you all? I want to say hello and thank you all for participating today in this presentation. We have Howard Martin from the HEARTMATH Institute. And with that, I'll let Howard introduce himself.
Well, first of all, greetings, everyone. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Portal to Ascension, for hosting this program tonight. I am, in fact, Howard Martin, and it's a Saturday night on a full moon weekend, so a great time to get together and let's talk about something that's really important to me that I hope is important to you, which is the power and intelligence of our heart. So, as mentioned, I'm Howard Martin. I've been here at HeartMath now for 25 years. I'm one of the people who helped HeartMath's founder, Dr. Childrey, actually start and develop HeartMath and the HeartMath system. My title today is Executive Vice President of HeartMath LLC. That's the for-profit part of HeartMath. Back in 1999 now, I had the honor of co-authoring a book with Dr. Childrey. It's called The HeartMath Solution. It's published by HarperCollins. It's gone on to be a very successful book, still being published by HarperCollins today. And it's sold hundreds of thousands of copies all around the world. And for me, that was a life-changing experience. It gave me a platform and a forum to do things like I'm doing tonight, which is to share information from here at HeartMath with all of you. One fun thing I'll tell you is that we just released a new book yesterday. First book we've done here at HeartMath in a decade. It's called Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of Your Heart. And we released it yesterday through an exclusive arrangement with Amazon, where it's available in Kindle and in print-on-demand formats. And I woke up yesterday morning, checked the Amazon rankings, and saw that we were in the top 100 on Amazon of all the books they sell. And it was all the way down to 76 on Amazon. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. But that's the interest that we seem to have right now in the type of subjects that we talk about and the things that I'm going to share with you. I had a couple of realizations when I was a young man, fortunately, at about age 21. One of those was I believed that the purpose of life was to evolve and to grow. That is why we were here. That's why all living things were here, is to evolve and to grow. So I knew back then, even at age 21, that my life had to be about that. Regardless of what I ended up doing for a career, where I lived, who I was married to, all those things would be important. But at the very core of what was going to be important for me was continuous growth, process of trying to unfold myself. The second part of that realization that I had was that life had to be about service to others in some way. I had to find ways to share and give to other people with whatever I gained in life. It didn't necessarily have to be grandiose. It didn't have to be an ambition-driven service, but I knew that I had to share in some way. So I can say that today, tonight, right now, here on the 20th of February 2016, that I'm still trying to grow each and every day, trying to be a better Howard Martin, today than I was yesterday. Learning and growing all the time, finding out new things about myself, about others, and about the world. And through what's taken place here at HeartMath in these 25 years, I've found a way to be in service to others in ways that I never could have imagined. So it's been quite a journey, quite an experience, quite a ride, and certainly not over. But I can't have enough appreciation for what's taken place in my life. And if I look at why these things have happened to me, it goes back to a simple phrase that we've all heard for all of our lives. And that phrase is this: learn to trust and follow your heart. That's all I've really done all these years, is systematically learn to develop a connection to my heart, trust it, and to live by the principles associated with heart. And that's led me to where I am today, and I'm very fortunate to be where I am today. I'm going to share key HeartMath tools and techniques and concepts and science with you in the 90 minutes that we're going to spend together this evening. This is the type of program that I've done around the world to many, many thousands of people on just about every continent. And I have the opportunity now to share it with you in this format through the teleseminar and the webinar series that we have set up through Portal to Ascension. So it's going to be interesting, I hope, for you. My goal is to share as much with you as I can that you can take home with you, apply in your life, and that it will have an impact in your life, a positive impact in some way to help you through these changing times that we're all living in. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about these changing times that we all live in. I think most people today, and certainly people like you, I would believe, recognize that we're living in extraordinary times. Never before has so much change been taking place in such a short amount of time. Just a super high-speed transformational era in which we live. And we are at critical junctions right now in the choices that we're making, individually and collectively and globally, about the future of our world and the future of our own lives. So the way I see it's this, is we are living in an era that presents great opportunity, but also has great challenge. Challenges are easy for us to see. All we have to do is turn on the news and we see, the state of the world fully displayed in front of our very eyes. And it's often very disheartening in a way when we see how much conflict there is, how much social inequity there is. We see the ecological issues, many, many things. I don't think I need to list them for you tonight. And that is an effect of high-speed change. It creates a chaos in many ways, and we're at a very chaotic era right now in the world. That's the bad news. The good news is that that same energetic momentum that's driving the high-speed change is also giving us the ability to grow and to evolve faster than ever before. So it comes down to being a matter of choice, which way we go, moment to moment, day to day. What choices are we making? How are we aligning with this energetic momentum of change? Is it creating stress and discord in our life? Or are we making choices that are evolving us at super high speed? That seems to be the game that goes on right now for just about everybody, however aware they are of it or not. It's a game of choice. I truly believe we are living in an era of advanced co-creative capacity fueled by self-initiated effort. We have to do it. We have plenty of facilitation available to assist us, but we have to make those choices. And the best way that I know to make those choices is to listen to and following my heart. Perhaps you can sense and feel some of the same things that I've talked about. Someone like you who's involved in an organization like Portal to Ascension, who's making a choice on your Saturday night to come to a program like this, that speaks a lot to me. The person that you are and probably the interest that you may have in your own personal growth and in ushering in a new world. And I think a new world is emerging. We are seeing a new world unfold. The old world has been there for a long time and it's pushing back. The new world is trying to emerge. The friction that we see is often depicted on the news. It's where two worlds are colliding, two worlds are meeting. So that's a preface to what I want to discuss tonight. And to begin that process, I'd like to share with you now the first of the HEARTMATH techniques that you're going to learn, called the quick coherence technique. Simple, but it has high utility value. I will explain the effects of this technique in a few minutes. But what I'd like to do now is share it with you. It's a simple three-step process. If you're in a position to close your eyes, I would suggest that you do that as I walk you through the technique. First step in the quick coherence technique is called heart focus. It's pretty simple. You shift your attention here to the area right in the center of your chest, the area of your heart. Feel the energy coming from the head, shifting down gently, right to the area of your heart. Step 2, called heart-focused breathing. What I want you to do now is to breathe deeply, but naturally, deeper than you normally would. And as you inhale, I want you to feel as if your breath is actually coming in right through the center of your chest in the area of your heart. And then as you exhale, send your breath back out through that same area. Keep your focus in the area of the heart and breathe through the heart area. And we'll do that for a few breaths together now. Now continue with your heart-focused breathing. We'll go to the third step now, called heart feeling. I want you to feel a heart-related emotion. Make it a kind and easy and gentle process, nothing you have to force. But perhaps you can feel appreciation for the good things in your life. Heart-related emotion, appreciation. Maybe feel the love or the care you have for someone or something in your life. Self will just recall a time when you felt good and try to re-experience that feeling. Whatever comes to you right now is fine. Just continue with your heart-focused breathing and then activate that positive heart-related emotion. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to share some science with you along the way in more detail, but let me just tell you a little bit about what happens when you do that technique. It brings about more order in the cardioelectricities produced by the heart. It creates more synchronization in what's called your autonomic nervous system, which influences about 90% of all the body's functions. When that syncs up, you are releasing hormones into your system that regenerate you, like more DHEA, the anti-aging or vitality hormone, or more oxytocin, generically called the love hormone. So you're improving yourself at the physiological level. It's a synchronized state that you're improving. And you're also sending signals from the heart back to the brain that are beneficial to higher brain function. And I will share more with you about that in just a few minutes. Now, get comfortable. Make sure that we can just have this conversation in a comfortable way. And from time to time, like right now, I'm going to look down and turn some pages here because I have a few notes that I'll need to refer to every now and then. And along the way, I'm going to also ask you to type in your questions in your chat box. And you'll type in your question, and then will do my best to answer that question. It could be a question about something we've just experienced. It could be something that I've said. Get your comments so we can create a little bit of a dialogue in the context of what we're doing together this evening. Now, just a little bit ago, I talked about the changes that are occurring in the world. And here's one of the ways that I see these changes. I see it as a dimensional shift occurring in consciousness, in the actual field of consciousness itself. A dimensional shift is taking place. Now, there are many ways of understanding this. This is just one way of seeing it. It's a paradigm or construct that I'm going to share with you now about dimensions and about the dimensional shift. When I talk about dimensions in this context, I'm not talking about a physical dimension. I'm talking about ranges of consciousness, the width in which we can perceive, the consciousness that can be accessed by us. Now, for about 2,000 years, I believe that the world has been operating in what I would classify as a third dimensional paradigm. Let me just say that every dimension is okay. It's not about right or wrong or good or bad. Every dimension seems appropriate within itself. It all checks out. It all makes sense when you're operating in a specific dimensional construct. Third dimension is a dimension that's ruled by duality. It births things like good and bad, and right and wrong. The third dimension, it's less inclusive. People tend to consider their own needs first. It's about us versus them. It's about get them or make sure you get yours before they do. The third dimensional type of thinking creates that sort of separation and polarization that we often see in the world today. It spawns things like wars and conflicts. At the same time, look at the world we have today. Look at the beauty. Look at the art. Look at the architecture. Look at the music. Look at all the wonderful people in the world. And you can see that even in third dimension with the separation, that it's not all bad. But that separation is something that, that we have been experiencing for a very long time. The third dimension has limitations. Now, a lot of people now are moving into the fourth dimension. And when I say move, I mean it this way. We don't stay in one dimension of awareness all the time. It modulates all the time through the course of the day. But it's about where our baseline is. Where do we operate from as a norm or a baseline? And a lot of people have moved into operating from a fourth dimensional baseline. Now, within each dimension, there are ranges in that dimension. Think about it like digits from 1 to 10. So you have a low range in the fourth dimension, a middle range, and a higher range in the fourth dimension. Now, I'll read a few things here off my sheet. So in the part of the lower fourth dimension, people begin to see hope for change. And they consider new possibilities. It isn't just dog eat dog trying to survive. So new possibilities become something in consciousness for them. We know a lot of things in the lower fourth. We can read the books. We can get the understanding and the knowledge, but we don't necessarily act on insights with any consistency. Now, a lot of people have moved into the lower fourth. You see people caring a little bit more about things beyond themselves. It's not about just surviving and dog eat dog. Now, the next range in that is the middle fourth dimension. Now, a lot of people have moved into that range of dimension. Millions, actually, all around the world. And I see this as I travel and as I speak in various places, whether it's in Asia or in Europe or in Australia and New Zealand. I see lots and lots of people that are going to that next level where their baseline is moved up into the middle fourth dimension of awareness. In the middle fourth, we perceive things more holistically. We develop a greater sense of our own self-responsibility. We begin to see the connection between what we do and how it affects our lives and the lives of others. We become more self-responsible. And our thoughts and our actions are definitely more caring and compassionate. Those are aspects of a middle fourth dimensional baseline. Now, what's tricky about the middle fourth, though, is that it's such a big leap from third dimension to get there. You go all the way from third and you go through this process of lower fourth to middle fourth. And one of the tricky parts of the middle fourth is it can look like we're kind of there. Also, I find in the middle fourth, it's fertile ground for judgments. In the middle fourth, we haven't really gotten past the judgmental tendencies that we sometimes have. So it can be still a form of separation. Like, those people don't get it. These people are really bad. Judgments of leaders, judgments of business, judgments of other nations. It gets into a very judgmental, sort of self-righteous way of looking at things. So it's a tricky one to be careful of for two reasons. One, it can be a complacent place. We think we're there because we've made the changes, we've changed our attitudes, we've changed our habits, we've changed our diets, we live life very differently than we did, say, 10, 20 years ago, and it can be a very complacent place. But there's more. There's the higher fourth dimension. Let me give you some characteristics of higher fourth dimensional thinking. In the higher fourth, we have a consistent access to intuitive perception. I'm going to talk a little bit about intuition later on, but more connection really on a consistent basis to intuitional intelligence. It's far less self-centric. We really don't think about ourselves quite as much in the higher fourth. It gives a greater understanding and experience of the co-creative reality that we have available to us through our self-responsibility. We really become aware that we are creating so much in our lives. We begin to connect those dots in a very visceral, tangible, understandable way. And the higher fourth gives us the enhanced ability to choose our emotional states. This will be a subject coming up just a little later. But we have the ability in the higher fourth to feel like we want to feel when we want to feel that way. We can call more of the shots on our emotional choices and get a real understanding, comprehensive handle on our emotional capacities. In the higher fourth, known concepts take on new meaning. So we have things like we've all probably studied and read things about appreciation and gratitude, for example. And so we think we understand appreciation and gratitude. Then the higher fourth, it can take on even more new meaning. It spirals up. So it can be the same subject, but it has new understanding and new meaning within it. It's a spiraling process that we go through, and we take on old concepts, take on new clothes. They become something very different for us. Another interesting part of moving through dimensional consciousness is that things actually get easier and simpler instead of more complex. In third dimension, things have to be more complex to be valued. The more complex they are, the more we tend to be drawn to them or respect them. In the higher fourth, it's the other way around. Things get simpler, easier. Simplicity is complexity crunched into something usable. And that's what happens in the higher fourth dimension. Higher fourth dimensional consciousness is a new experience. Here's what I mean by that. We haven't really had it here a lot on planet Earth before. So what higher fourth dimension is not just what we have today with new clothes on it. That's what the tendency would be. It's something different, it's something new, it's something amazing, it's something magnificent that we are moving into as a global society. That's what's happening. We're moving into a higher fourth dimensional access. And the world is really poised for this now. It's part of the evolutionary shift that we're involved in that I was mentioning at the beginning of the program. This high-speed era of transformation, the ability to grow and change like never before. We're moving into a higher fourth dimensional paradigm. It's a huge leap. The time on it, who knows? But I can say that, I believe that we're in about a 100-year window of time when a lot of these changes are occurring and can occur. It's that quick, that fast. And I think we're sort of in the middle of it somewhere. We've got the mass amount of conflict happening in the world today, and yet there's millions and millions of people around the world who've gone to a different level within themselves. They're behaving differently, acting differently. They have a different set of values. All these things are unfolding at the same time, simultaneously. And so it becomes a matter, again, of our choices. What do we do? Moment to moment, day to day. And for me, and for anyone, I can operate and modulate the various dimensional understandings of things. If I'm having a bad day, life looks tough, I'm grumbling, I'm complaining, I'm judging someone else, that's my third dimensional self. I catch on to that, go back to my heart, activate the heart's intelligence, move on, and then I'm operating in a different place. And then there are times when I'm accessing more of that higher fourth, getting intuitive insights and discernment, really seeing into things in a new way, really beyond myself and how I'm going to come out on something, and really looking at things from a holistic perspective, really caring for others more than for myself. So I can modulate through that in any given day. I think most people can that are accessing some of these new energetic fields of information. And that's the fun and exciting part of these changing times, of what's been generically called the shift. So I want to set that context for you, and here's why. One of the most important aspects of this dimensional shift taking place is the re-emergence of the intelligence of the heart. That's what HEARTMATH's been about all these years. It's unfolding the heart's intelligence and providing a system consisting of tools, techniques, methods, all underpinned with scientific research and even technology, designed to help people connect with their own heart's intuitive guidance. And that's what our new book's about, Heart Intelligence, connecting with the intuitive guidance of your heart. That's what it's about. So, heart intelligence, let me describe what that really is. Because my life's journey has been about that. And see if you can resonate with some of what I'm going to say now. Makes sense to you if you've had similar feelings. Heart's intelligence is associated with high-speed intuition, intuitive contact, information that comes in through a non-local field that you can then put into practice. It bypasses some of the logical linear processes we usually go through to reach understanding. It's the type of intelligence that we have that births or gives rise to the emotions that we revere the most, that I mentioned already, like more appreciation, more care, more love. Those type of emotions are birthed from the intelligence of the heart. It's that part of us that allows for ourselves to move beyond our mediocrity and to achieve things that we sometimes think we can't. That's when we're our very best. When we're in touch with the heart and the intelligence of the heart, we exceed our own expectations. We surprise ourselves. We didn't think we could get through that or didn't think we could accomplish something, but we do. When we're really in touch with that intelligence of the heart, that's when we become, the hero. The hero within is right here in our hearts. And it's intelligence that we all really have within our hearts. Now, the last thing I'm going to say about it in this context is that what I've learned in these 40-some years of self-exploration is that my heart is really my own best friend. It's the most reliable guide I have in making decisions in my life, whether they be big decisions or little decisions. Let me read you now just a simple definition of heart intelligence. Heart intelligence is the flow of higher awareness, wisdom, and intuition we experience when the mind and emotions are brought into a synchronistic alignment with the heart. That's a simple definition of it. Now, when you did the quick coherence technique, what you did was you began to access that heart intelligence. That simple technique, and I'll give you 3 steps again: heart focus breathing, and the activation of heart feeling. When you did that, you were bringing in more than just the physiological changes. You were beginning to access more of your heart's intelligence in the field of information that would be associated with intuition. Slowing down the mind and emotions, the vibratory rate, accessing more of your heart, feeling that positive heart-related emotion begins to open you up to another level of your own self. Now, as mentioned earlier, if you have questions or comments, you can type them into your chat box. And I can pause on this. I can read them on the screen that I have here, and I can try to answer those questions. So far, I've talked about the world, about the changing times we live in. I've talked about the dimensional shift in consciousness. I've shared the quick coherence technique with you, and I've described heart intelligence. What are you feeling right now? How does this make you feel? You can type that in your chat box. Or do you have a question or comment about anything that I've said so far? So I'll get a drink of water here and pause a second and allow you to ponder those questions. And if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please type it into the chat box now.
All right, everybody. Now's your chance to ask Howard any questions you have, and please don't be shy. I'm sure you all probably have something you would like to ask him. You could think of something you would like to ask him, and it is not even have to be that directly related. It could be just somewhat related.
We have one here from Laura. Thank you very much, Laura. So the technique is so simple and yet so powerful. Love it. So Laura felt something from that simple technique of heart focus breathing, heart feeling. Here's another one from Lisa. Lisa Joan. Thank you. I am challenged with grounding, and my emotions are all over the board. Hey, join the club. That's part of the time. Hopefully, we're going to have some things for you that can help with that. Now, here's one from Jared from Florida. Also look at where people come from. We have Lisa from Michigan. The first one from Laura doesn't say where she's from, private, and we have someone from Florida. So Jerry says, I'm loving what you're saying so far. Thank you. As far as the transitional period is concerned, do you have an idea how long this process of transition and transformation will be? Kind of, but not really. Here's why. I mean, I think we can move through this. I think that in the next 100 years, this world is going to be a very, very different place beyond what we can possibly imagine. You can't really see it yet. In interviews, I get asked the question all the time, well, Howard, you talk about the shift, what's it going to be like? What's the world going to be like? I realized after a while I had to come up with an authentic answer. And the authentic answer I chose was, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because it's unlike anything we've seen before. And we're at a place, I think, where we're not allowed to see around the corners just yet. Can't quite see around the edge. We're still having to go for that inner self-empowered push before we can actually see. So I think we're in a position now, let's just say maybe an analogy would be someone in the 1800s is sitting on a buggy with a horse. Somebody walks up and says, I heard there's going to be new transportation coming into our world. What do you think that's going to be? Well, that person sitting on the buggy, the best they can probably do is to imagine a different buggy or a different horse, but they can't see the airline industry. And I think that's where we are today. So as far as time, I think within the next 50, 80, 100 years, we're going to make huge strides. In this lifetime, we're already seeing changes. Despite the chaos and confusion that we see, I think many of us are also seeing something different that's manifesting already. So the time period could be as short as, as 80 to 100 years, I think. Here's where it gets tricky. It becomes a matter of mass consciousness choice on how fast or slow it takes place. We are calling the shots in many ways on it. Now, the shift's going to happen whether we like it or not. The question becomes, how kind and gentle a process can it be? But we are controlling the clock some ourselves through the collective conscious choices that we are making as a global society. So the clock is a bit tricky just to pin down, but I think we're on the move with it, and I think it is accelerating. Okay, one more I have. Also loving that you're including dimensional awareness. Northern California, but originally from Texas. That's Laura. So Laura's from Texas. She probably can at least appreciate my accent a little bit. I'm actually originally from Virginia and North Carolina, and that's the accent that everyone's hearing. So thank you for your comments and typing those in. We'll do more of that as we go. But let me share some things with you now to help explain heart intelligence a bit. Now, so far, I think one way to maybe describe how I've been talking about heart intelligence would be philosophically inspirational. Here's one of the things that HeartMath is famous for, science. When we started HeartMath back in 1991, we'd had our own personal experiences for many years about heart. We wanted to introduce a heart-based system to the world that could have mainstream societal impact. To do that, we figured out we better do heart differently because it's been around for thousands of years and still being held in the confines, respected confines, of philosophy and spirituality, but people not taking it as seriously as we felt they needed to. We needed to build a bridge between that philosophical understanding of heart and practical daily living. We chose science to be that bridge. And if I look at HeartMath today, that's probably what we're most famous for. We're seen as the people that introduced this whole new concept of heart at a physiological and psychological level that has, been pioneers in understanding, an aspect of ourselves in a whole new way with published research in major scientific journals and huge body of scientific research. That's what we're probably most famous for. The HeartMath system is a lot more than science, but science has given us the ability to implement HeartMath in so many places. I'll give you examples. We do training in police forces. Now, I know everybody's not fond of the military, but there's a lot of great people in the military. They're not killing people. It's where they work. And we've trained in all 4 branches of the U.S. military. HEARTMATH training, a heart-based system being used in the military. So our reach has been wide, and we've been able to go deep into mainstream society, and it's because of the science. So I will now share with you a little bit of that HEARTMATH science. I'm going to tell you a new story about heart at the physiological level. Now, when we first started HEARTMATH and first started doing scientific research, the scientists who work here would tell me things that I found interesting, intriguing. One time they told me that the heart actually starts to beat in a fetus long before we have a brain. I thought, oh, really? So, yeah, you have a beating heart, it starts. And when it starts, there's only a little brain stem there. So the beating heart precedes the development of brain. I asked them, well, what makes the heart start to beat? And they said, we don't know, because nobody knows. So even with all the sophisticated science we have today, no one truly knows what makes the heart actually start to beat. But magically, in a certain way, it begins to beat. And it marks the beginning of life for us. Another thing they explain is that the source of the heartbeat is actually in the heart itself. Now, somehow, I wasn't that good in school, didn't pay much attention to certain things. I had a feeling that the brain was kind of making the heart beat. No way. The brain sends information down to the heart. It helps control the timing of the heartbeat, but it is not making it beat. The heart has its own little engine called an autorhythmic organ. The heart has its own little engine inside, and it beats on its own. You can see that reflected when someone has a heart transplant. In a heart transplant, the nerves, a beating heart, first of all, is removed from a donor. They put it in a chemical solution, and I've talked to cardiologists that do heart transplants, and they described this to me in detail. They put it in a chemical solution and it's beating. They ready the body of the recipient, place the heart in the recipient, and it's still beating. They can't connect the nerves that run from brain down to heart. Surgically, they have not been able to do that. So there is no neurological connection, and yet the heart continues to beat in the body of the new person. They often put a pacemaker in to help control the timing of the heart, but it's not making it beat. So if I add all this up, I thought, this is intriguing. I have this organ in my body, it marks the beginning of life. Nobody knows why it starts to beat, and it has its own energy, its own little engine. It's really a unique part of my physiology. But the story gets better. Today we know definitively through our research and research done by researchers all around the world that the heart is more than just doing more than just pumping blood. It's actually an information processing center in our bodies. It sends information to the brain and to our entire body, and that information is critical to how we function. So it's a major part of our body's intelligence, sending information. Now, it sends information to us in 4 ways, and I'm going to describe those 4 ways to you now. The first way is a neurological communication. Here's what I mean by that. The heart actually has a very complex nervous system. It's studied through a medical field called neurocardiology. Next to the brain is the most complex part of the nervous system that exists in our body. It consists of neurons, proteins, and support cells. I just used the term neuron. Neuron's the name of brain cells, and they're in the heart? Yes, they are. They found that the heart has about 40,000 neurons. Now, the brain has billions, so 40,000 is not a lot, but the fact that they existed in the heart was a scientific discovery. Most of those neurons are what's called local circuit neurons, and they're the same kind of neuron you find here responsible for memory, and they exist in our heart. So this nervous system sending information up through a nerve pathway that starts here, goes up, enters the lower centers of our brain, continues on into the mid-level brain where we have what's called the limbic system, where a lot of our emotional processing takes place, but then it goes all the way up into the neocortex, higher perceptual centers in our brain, receiving information from the heart. So when scientists map out the neurological traffic in our bodies, they can clearly see that the heart is actually sending a lot more information than it receives. And that's the only organ in the body that that's true of. So you have this neurological conversation taking place all the time between heart and brain. Brain sending timing information to the heart, heart sending a lot more information back to the brain, and that information is critically dependent. The brain's critically dependent on that information. And that's your first way, it's neurological. Second way, what's called a biophysical communication. If you would, place your finger on your wrist. I'll do it with you. What we're feeling is our pulse. Pulse is actually a wave of energy created by the squeezing of the heart muscle. And that wave of energy is pushing the blood through the veins and the arteries. So that it's called a blood pressure wave. So that blood pressure wave actually goes to every part of our body. That's how blood is getting to every part of our body. Now the blood pressure wave changes depending upon the rhythmic beating patterns of the heart. As the heart beats differently, a different rhythm, the blood pressure wave changes. Now the blood pressure wave influences, as I said, lots of biological function. One of the places that it influences is the brain. It turns out that brain function, the electrical activity in our brain, is synchronized. Changes occurring in the blood pressure wave. So as the blood pressure wave changes, electrical activity in our brain changes. And that's your second way. It's called a biophysical communication. Third way was one of these things that I like to call a who knew. This information was already in the research literature, but nobody paid any attention to it. Third way is a biochemical communication. In 1983, the heart was actually reclassified as being part of our hormonal system. It produces hormones. One of those, for example, is called atrial peptide. One of atrial peptide's jobs is to reduce the release of the stress hormone cortisol. Fascinating. A hormone produced in my heart that's modulating or backing off a stress hormone? Amazing. It also produces oxytocin. I mentioned that earlier. Oxytocin is generically called the love hormone. It's produced in greater amounts when we're in loving states, like a mother with a young baby. I've also seen research recently linking oxytocin increased production to people that are put in trusting situations where they have to trust one another. I've also seen information showing that empathy increases the production of oxytocin. It turns out that the heart is one of the major producers of oxytocin in our bodies. So we have a biochemical communication, chemicals being produced in the heart distributed throughout the body. So those first three ways that I've described to you, how the heart is doing more than pumping blood, how it's communicating, are what I call hardwired biological communication pathways. Well researched, well understood. Now, the fourth way is where it gets very interesting. You see, the heart is actually an electrical organ. It produces by far the strongest source of bioelectricity in our bodies. About 40 to 60 times more bioelectricity than the second most powerful source, which is the brain. When we go to a doctor and they do the electrocardiogram test, they're measuring that electrical signal. That's why it's called an electrocardiogram. They're measuring electricity produced by the heart. Now, the electrical energy produced by our heart goes to every single cell in our bodies. We're bathing ourselves in this electrical energy that the heart is producing. But here's the interesting part. It's strong enough that it creates an electromagnetic field that surrounds each and every one of us in 360 degrees and extends beyond our skin out into space about 3 to 4 feet. So right now, each and every one of you is producing an electromagnetic field from your heart that's going out into the energetic field environment. Now that field changes, meaning that the frequencies or the radio stations being broadcast in the field change all the time. And one of the major influencers of those changes is our emotional state. Like, Jared was, Laura was saying, Lisa was saying their emotions all over the place. Well, a lot of times that shows up in the electromagnetic field produced by the heart. You see those changes occurring. So we are literally broadcasting our emotions out into space, about 3 to 4 feet through the electromagnetic field surrounding us. So now the research goes a different direction. It moves beyond biology, and now we're into physics, and now we're even into quantum physics. Questions become, how does the field produced by the heart affect the brain? How does my field or your field affect another's field? How is a collective field, a group of people together, what's happening in that dynamic between all of these electromagnetic fields, creating a unified field of some kind? We moved into quantum physics. We removed the barriers of time and space. Now we don't have to worry about having distances or time. So right now, all of us together on this call are actually creating, in a quantum sense, a field, because we're connected in some way. We're all connected in some way. We all live in this vast field of energetic frequencies, and we're all connected. So we're connecting right now through our time together, even though we're in different physical locations. So the research becomes very intriguing and interesting now of this field produced by the heart, how it influences things, how it is influenced by other things, where it goes. Is it infinite? Does it connect beyond our planet, beyond each other, to other systems? These are all questions that are to be discovered in the coming years. But there's your fourth way. So the 4 ways in which the heart is communicating with us are neurological, biophysical, biochemical, and energetic. And now the science begins to give credence to many of the things that have been said about heart for thousands of years. It begins to add that pragmatic, grounded underpinning to understand some of the intuitive senses that many people have had about their heart. Why do people point to themselves here? Why do people say, yeah, I just need to really listen to my heart more? Why do people say, that team wins because they play with so much heart? Science is now showing that these are not just casual comments, that there's an underpinning that we've been able to bring to the world that has redefined what heart is and tells a new story about heart. And it shows that even at the physiological level that we have an intelligence that relates to the things that I said about heart intelligence earlier. There's a science story. And sharing it with you, what I hope it does is give you a new respect for that intelligence you have inside yourselves. And know that there's some things going on inside your body when you practice a technique as simple as quick coherence. When you practice the quick coherence technique, here's what happens. You are bringing about, as I said earlier, more order into those cardioelectricities. You're bringing about synchronization in the communication taking place between heart and brain. That all improves. You're triggering hormones in your body that regenerates you. The signals that are going from heart back to brain open up the higher perceptual centers in the brain. They become more electrically active and alive. So you have full capacity to your brain function, the wonderful, magnificent part of our body that we experience in brain. So that communication's all improved when you do that technique. And you're changing the field. You're changing your own electromagnetic field, and that's connecting you to something larger. That's where you're connecting to each other in a different way. That's when you're connecting to another field of information and not just the third dimensional box. All that happens so quickly and so easily by simply practicing that technique. Now I'm going to share a little bit more science with you, and then I'm going to open up for more of your comments in the chat box. When all of that communication is working at optimal levels, we enter a state called coherence. The medical name for that is called psychophysiological coherence. Coherence is actually both physical and psychological. It's a very, very beneficial state to be in. It is not just a sleepy time state. It is a state that is peaceful and calm, yet very alert and very aware. You have a lot of sensitivity when you're in that state. It's arrived at very naturally through things like being with someone you love, taking a walk in the woods. People trigger it all the time whether they understand it that way or not, when they pray or when they meditate. All those are naturally coherence building experiences that we have. We can learn to trigger it ourselves consciously and intentionally. The coherence at the physiological level is this. Heart rhythms become smooth and ordered. You want a lot of variation in heart rhythm, but when you go to the coherent state, that variation is like a sine wave moving up and down, speeding up and then slowing back down and then speeding back up. When that happens, all the major body systems start to synchronize with that rhythm. And that's things like digestion, respiration, immune system response, hormonal releases, and brain function. All that syncs. And when you sync up that way, you enter a very energy efficient state. Less energy is being wasted. We can measure these things. We can measure things like, for instance, reaction speed times improve. We train athletes at HeartMath, professional athletes, train teams of athletes. Partners we have in Europe train the Swedish national soccer team that won the European Championship. We train NFL kickers, golfers, lots of people trained in HeartMath, and they're athletes because that's such a efficient, effective state where things like reaction speed time and visual field all improve. And that's just at the physical level. Psychological benefits, I think, are even greater. Coherence is naturally triggered when we experience a positive emotion, like we did in the quick coherence technique. When we're experiencing real love or real care or real compassion, coherence begins to occur. Once we've activated coherence, what happens next is really interesting. Those type of emotions start to become more readily available. They begin to flow. Now we're more appreciative in general about things. Now we're more caring instead of being so judgmental. Now we have real compassion and not just some, empathetic response, but true compassion. All those emotions begin to open up for us. So it's triggered by a positive emotion, and then it engenders more positive emotions. So physiologically, highly efficient state. Psychologically, it is positive emotion. We have technology that people use to train themselves to become more coherent, measure their coherence, and we have patented algorithms that score the heart rhythms for the degree of coherence. One is called the M-Wave, E-M-W-A-V-E. Check it out on our website, heartmath.com. Little handheld device or computer-based. Shows the heart rhythms, measures them for coherence, trains you how to become more coherent. And then we took it to another level for people that have Apple devices, iPhones, iPads. You get an app from the Apple stores called Inner Balance Trainer. You purchase a sensor from HeartMath or Amazon or somewhere. You plug it into your phone or your iPad, and now you got the same technology right in your mobile device. We've taken it even to that level. Technology is just assistive technology to help people learn to train themselves to become more naturally coherent. And as they do, there are health benefits, performance benefits, awareness benefits, spiritual benefits that come from increasing coherence. So I use my Inner Balance Trainer all the time, twice a day usually. And it's been real useful for me to help build a new coherence baseline in myself. So I've been talking for a while now, sharing science. What I'd like to do is I'd like to open up the chat room again. I'd like you guys to type in your comments or your questions. If any of that was confusing, if you need more clarity, please come in now and type that in for me. I'll make comments. Okay, still waiting. People seem to be a little slow on the typing. Or maybe I'm seeing it slow. What was the most important thing you got out of all that science? Okay, I have a question here. Thank you. Do you have time to elaborate on the Inner Balance Trainer? I actually do. I'll take a minute to do that. With all of our technologies, what we've done is we've been able to measure heart rhythms. The medical term for that is heart rate variability analysis. Heart rate variability is a major discipline now in health. It's measuring the timing changes occurring between heartbeats. And it's an indicator of things like nervous system synchronization, heart-brain communication. All that is part of what Inner Balance Trainer, what heart rhythm analysis provides you. Now, we provided full-blown heart rate variability analysis through our devices, including our mobile devices. Nobody else has ever done that. We've done that. We pulled that off. And it is, I'll see if you can see any of this. Can you guys see that? This is an Inner Balance Trainer. I've connected a clip to my ear. I've plugged it into the phone. This is a breathing mandala. When you start it, you get a breathing mandala. So it helps people learn to breathe and do the technique like I shared with you earlier. But there are other screens. For example, now what you're going to see, I don't know if you can actually see this, you're going to see my heart rate variability pattern at the top of the screen come up. And you're going to start seeing my coherence scores show up here. So the goal of using it is to increase your coherence scores. The more coherent you are, the higher the number is. And you accumulate points as you're using it. This also connects to what's called a heart cloud. So you have a dashboard where you go, you can see all of your sessions, you can see, everything that you've done, and you can type notes, you can set goals, you can do a lot on the heart cloud. And so it's just a quick review of that. I suggest you just take a look at the website, HEARTMATH.com, and that's where you purchase the sensor from us. Lisa's asking a question. You purchase the sensor from the HEARTMATH site, and you get the app from the Apple Store. Now, the app is free. The sensor retails for $129. And then you've got full-blown heart rate variability analysis and coherence scoring analysis in your mobile device. And like I said, I'm not here to, sell technology, but I did want to mention it because, wow, I benefited tremendously from it. And I did want to have an opportunity to at least let all of you know that it existed. You guys can check it out after the program's over and see if it makes sense for you. Okay. Now, another Laura says, wanted to say to the person with the grounding issues, the coherence technique will help with grounding. She's correct about that. Okay, Laura again says, very happy about this info. Thank you for the work you do. Okay, very good. I think it's time for another technique. You guys ready for one? I hope so. Part of what's happening in consciousness is that new energetics, I'm going to call it, are available to us now. They're gifts from what I'm generically going to call it universal source. Because we're getting help to go through these changes. As much changes as happening today, it can be very, very hard for people. And there is facilitation available. There's a state of awareness that we can access now when we go at it through the heart. It's called the state of inner ease, E-A-S-E. Inner ease is amazing. Inner ease is so simple, but yet it's so powerful. Let me read a little bit about what inner ease is, a state of ease. It's a state of awareness. I'm going to share a little simple technique with you that you can experiment with, but let me explain what you're looking for, what inner ease is. Inner ease is moving at the speed of balance, slowing down our inner body language. Inner ease is not just a floaty, blissful state. Inner ease is very simple, and what it does is it slows down the vibratory rate of the mind and emotions. Just the way Doc Shorty sometimes describes things. He says this, Doc Shorty's HeartMath's founder. Inner ease is like a quiet doorway into our presence, a highly beneficial common sense practice. Quiet doorway into our inner presence. Inner ease, to me, what it does is it provides a flow inside me. It takes the rough edges off of my emotions and my experience of life. It just eases and flows things in a very gentle way. When Doc introduced inner ease to me and some others, he said, look, you'll see this maybe as just another HeartMath technique that we're going to put in our training programs. He said it's more than that. It's essential. It becomes a way of life. It will make everything easier for you as we all go through this transitional process. So inner ease is this very soft and interesting liquid feeling. It's casual. It's aware. It's not just floaty and blissful, but it has that, again, that flow to it, an ease feeling. So it's moving through resistances. More grace, more poise. And another thing Doc said, this is typical of his type of writing, he says, inner ease is an advanced practice, finding the flow, and how to create the flow, especially in non-flowing situations. So you create your own flow even when things are tough sometimes. So been mention of emotion, and let me just say this. I'm going to share a statement with you that I made in the HEARTMATH Solution book, the book that I co-authored with Doc Children in 1991, that I've said a thousand times since. And it's simply this, that I believe that learning to better understand and regulate our emotions represents the next frontier in human evolution. That important. See, we live life through our emotions. Emotions are a connection to life. And we as human beings have the most sophisticated and beautiful emotional capacity of any living thing on this planet. We can feel a myriad of emotions, everything from deep sadness to elation and joy, and thousands of different shades of emotion in between. So emotion is a great gift for us. It's the colors we use on the palette to paint the picture of our life. And yet, emotion remains elusive. Emotion has actually been characterized, especially in third dimensional consciousness, as something to be feared. Don't look at your emotions. Emotions are bad. You'll find something there, or you'll have to deal with all these emotions. Don't do that. So people stay closed off from their own emotions, from their own gift. But emotions don't have to be looked at that way. They can be looked at as translators of spirit into humanness. But we need to learn how to better regulate the emotion, to make emotional choices. Now, emotions are going to be responses. We're going to have perceptions about things, and we're going to have emotional responses to that, meaning something can upset us or something can make us happy. Those are all responses. But we also have emotional choices, the emotions that we are choosing to experience. Even when we have a strong negative emotion, let's say we get irritated, even when that happens, the emotions that we can choose after that are up to us. We can let that emotion fester, we can let it stay there, we can let it turn into frustration, we can let it turn into anger. Those are emotional choices. Conversely, we can feel that irritation. We can learn to use something like the state of ease or anything that works for you. Use a hard choice on it and say, no, I'm going to balance that out some. I don't want to feel irritated right now. I'd rather feel a bit more accepting or a bit more peaceful. We can learn to call the shots on our emotions. That is a higher state of consciousness. And as we do that, wow, we are so co-creative when we learn to regulate our emotions. We are then beginning to really create a new world for ourselves. I'll share another belief with you, and then I'll share a simple technique. I believe that we all live in this field of energy called consciousness that is reflecting back to us, not what we think up here, but what we truly feel in our hearts. And those emotions are the translator of that. So we're feeding the field all the time with information, and that field is reflecting back. And in a sense, we are creating our own life through the emotions. So learning to better regulate our emotions is an important skill set. Now, people try, I get it, but it's hard sometimes. It's a bit elusive. So let me share a simple technique with you that can help with that. It's very similar to what you've already learned. I hope that, in the context of just the limited time we have together tonight, that you're not seeing these techniques as all the same or too simple, that you're seeing some distinctions. Quick coherence sort of connects you to the heart really quickly, opens things up for you so you've got access to your heart intelligence. Inner ease technique creates more of that liquid flow in your life. It takes the rough edges and corners off of things, slows down your vibratory rate in the mind and emotions. And the technique I'm going to share with you now is, again, very similar, but it's used to learn to choose emotion. It's called the attitude breathing technique. The reason we chose the word attitude instead of emotion is that sometimes it's hard for people to identify a specific emotion. But we can certainly identify an attitude. An attitude is usually a bundle of different emotions. My wife can say, "You don't look good today. What's going on?" I can say, "I've got a bad attitude." What does that mean? It means I'm complaining. It means I'm dissatisfied. It means I maybe feel irritated. A whole combination of emotions could be summed up as I've got a bad attitude. So looking at this, we want to be able to recognize what we're actually feeling. I'm going to share the technique with you. And the first step that I'm going to share is actually one that most people don't do. Step one is recognize a feeling or attitude that you want to change. Recognize a feeling or attitude that you want to change. Well, to do that, you have to pay attention to what you're actually feeling. You have to slow down and look at yourself and say, what am I feeling right now? Is this really what I want to be feeling? Is this the kind of attitude I want to have right now? Most people don't bother to slow things down. They just get caught up in the roar and rush of life, and they just let the emotions have their way with them. But you can learn to slow down and look. Then you have to want to change it. So you're observing emotions that you may not want, attitudes that are not serving you well. Then you have to want to change that. That's step one. Recognize a feeling or attitude that you want to change. That's step one. Step two is identify a replacement attitude. Then breathe the feeling of the new attitude slowly and deeply and casually through your heart area. You do this for a while to anchor the new feeling. So you're choosing a replacement for the attitude that you don't want. This is just a list to give you some suggestions. This is not like law here. This is just suggestions. Let's say you're feeling stressed. Well, maybe you choose the replacement of neutral. Feeling of neutral. Let's say you're feeling anxious. Well, the replacement for anxious might be the feeling of calm. Overwhelmed. This is what everybody goes through. Overwhelmed. Breathe the feeling of ease and peace. Impatience. Breathe the feeling of patience. You're choosing to be patient rather than impatient. How much impatience do we go through? I could do a whole seminar on just that, on all the impatience that we experience in life. Matter of fact, my tour talk this year, the one that I'm doing live as I go to various places in the United States, Europe, and Asia, is actually called Dancing with the Rhythm of Life. It's about learning to find the flow with all the various rhythms of this change, in this era of change that we're going through. And one of the things that knocks us out of the rhythm is impatience. So when you find yourself in patience, breathe the feeling of patience. These are suggestions. So I hope you're catching on to that. You're choosing replacement attitudes. And then you breathe it casually through the area of the heart until you've anchored it in, until you begin to feel a shift. Think about this for me right now, or for yourself. What's some of your favorite negative or bad attitudes? Have fun with that. Self-observation, self-honesty. What are some of the attitudes and that you don't like, that you have all the time? They're sort of your favorite ones. We all have them. Identify that. You're doing step one right now. You're looking at something. You're recognizing something within yourself. Now that you've identified that, we're going to change that. I want you to pick a replacement attitude for the one that you don't want. What would it be? Whatever that attitude is, if you wanted to replace it with something that you'd rather have, would be more fulfilling, beneficial, and enjoyable for you to feel, what would that be? Now close your eyes, do your heart-focused breathing, and breathe feeling of the new attitude in and out through the area of the heart. Gentle process, shift it, anchor it in now, anchor in the new feeling. It can be that simple sometimes. Sometimes our emotions are just too charged or too revved up for this to have an immediate impact. But if you use it and then go back to it, you can make the shifts quicker than you used to. A lot of emotion we experience can be shifted very easily if you just pay attention, choose something different. It's part of a new consciousness, part of a higher fourth dimensional intelligence available to us. Okay, thank you so much. Hope that you were able to get a sense of that. Co-creative ability you have to do more with your emotions than maybe you ever thought you could. Yeah, there are long-standing emotional issues that are not easy to shift. I understand that, and people, get to those. But start with the small things. Start with things that you can get a handle on. There are a lot of attitudes and things that I just could let go, but I don't. And I've learned now that, to arrest them as early as I can because they don't serve me well. So I'm going to have my days. I'm going to have my moments. I'm going to have my irritations, frustrations, anxiousness, sadness. All that's part of being a human. All part of the human experience. But I've also learned that, I can do more with that. And I can do it by choosing to feel something different, going straight to the heart, making that shift. As I mentioned before, as we move up the dimensional consciousness, things get simpler instead of more complex. Some of the techniques I've shared with you so far, the three that I've shared, are very simple, and they all involve breathing and breathing through the heart. I understand that, but there's nuance to them. And they get simpler and they get easier. But you find it within yourself, and as you put those together in just a casual kind of way, what happens is you begin to change. Change happens more quickly than you might think. It's all part of the evolutionary spiral that we're involved in now. So you can go through changes and you can take on newness in yourself easier now than ever before. Really can. Okay. I have something else interesting I think you'll find interesting and exciting to share with you that relates to all this. This has been about us so far in our program tonight. About things we can do about our own heart's intelligence, the science behind it, some techniques put together to help us, access that. But we're going through a societal shift, a global shift that's happening. And we at HEARTMATH have also been looking at that and addressing that. So about 8 years ago now, it's amazing how time flies, we started a part of our organization called the Global Coherence Initiative. What we did is we did like other people were doing, other organizations. We put together a website. We set it up as a free membership. We encourage people to join, to use their heart-focused care and their intention to help shift planetary discord from all the things that we see to a world of more harmony, cooperation, and enduring peace. And today, there's probably 7,500,000 people from over 100 countries that are members of Global Coherence Initiative. We do things like every month put out what's called a care focus, where we record it, people can listen to it. We encourage people to put their heart and care towards various things, but also leave it neutral for people to put it where they want to. If my mic's on or not, there it is. And we also, at times when there's extreme planetary crisis, we send out a message to the list, people all around the world, and say, right now there's a major planetary event taking place. We need to put more of our heart and care out towards highest, best outcome for it. So we do those kind of things. And there are thousands of organizations around the world that do something similar. And in that regard, we're just doing our part here at HEARTMATH. But it's HEARTMATH, so science is involved. So what we're doing with science is we are doing very advanced scientific research, looking at a couple things. Let me put it in context. We have our own heart field, I described it earlier, but the Earth itself also produces energetic fields. Planet Earth is producing energetic fields. The two primary fields are the geomagnetic field, which is what a compass measures. When solar radiation hits that field, it's what lights up the aurora borealis. And it's a very dynamic and changing field, but it surrounds the Earth, and it's called a geomagnetic field. There's another field, it's less dense than the geomagnetic field. It starts just above our atmosphere and goes about 120 miles up into space. It's called the ionosphere. The ionosphere and the geomagnetic field provide this protective layer around our planet. If those fields did not exist, no life as we know it could exist on planet Earth. So they're protecting us from solar radiation, cosmic rays, space weather in general. That's what protects us from all of that, of these fields. Now, these fields are constantly changing. They're dynamic. They're fluctuating. And research has been going on for a long time now, and more research is actually going on as well. And what we know from that research is that these fields are affecting us. Changes in these fields are affecting human health and behavior. Societal behavior and physiological health are being influenced by these fields. This research goes back, as I mentioned, a long way, and more is coming up. Everything from heart attacks to strokes to changes in the stock market, traffic accidents, you name it, has been linked to changes in these fields. We've also seen that when the fields are more animated, when there's been more solar radiation, which is one of the primary influences on the fields, when that solar activity has been up, that's when some of the greatest eras of human flourishment have taken place in history and art. All these wonderful things have happened when more activity has been in those fields. So the point is these fields are not out to get us. It's neutral. They're providing an energetic influence that we can learn to attune to and use for our behalf. But there are definitely influencing us. They're affecting brain function, heart rate. A lot of things are being impacted by these fields. Now, using some good old Southern boy logic, here's what we figured. These fields are affecting us. That means we have a relationship to them. So what if we are also affecting these fields? We know that every single human being on this planet is producing an electromagnetic field, and there's 7 billion plus of us. Could it be these 7 billion plus of us are actually influencing these fields? That some of the changes occurring in the fields are human created. If that would be true, that would be pretty amazing. So to research this, we have deployed it, or in the process of deploying what's called global coherence monitoring sites. These sites consist of very sensitive technology that can measure subtle changes occurring in the geomagnetic field and the ionosphere. We are placing them around the world, feeding information back to our labs here in Northern California, and our scientists are studying these fields. We are testing, use the word testing now, the hypothesis that we are influencing the fields. And that will be a ways down the road before we know if that's true or not. We are doing very advanced scientific research today, understanding our relationship to those fields. Eventually, we will want 12 sensor sites. We'll have a complete arc of the fields around the planet. Today, we have a number of sites. We have one here in Northern California. We have another sensor site, global coherence monitoring site in Northern Canada. We have one in Lithuania. We have another in Saudi Arabia. We have a site in New Zealand. We have a site in South Africa. And soon there'll be a site going in South America. We are deploying these sites around the world for research. Now, the reason for that, I think, is to help bring people together with a common understanding. And if we are able to show that we are impacting these fields, it would be a revolution in understanding. Because what it would show is that all of our thoughts, our prayers, our intentions, our meditations, our affirmations, all the things that we do are having a measurable impact on the earth itself and on the fields that then in turn influence us. So part of our goal in HEARTMATH is to create more individual coherence in people, which leads to more social coherence, which then loops back around into more global coherence. As there's more global coherence, more people become individually coherent, society becomes more coherent, more global coherence, and the cycle goes on, and the spiral goes on. So it starts with us, you and me. And that's why I'm on this program tonight. That's why I'm still passionate about what I do. And that's why this Saturday night is important, to be together. Because I'm trying to share information that can help you become more coherent. As you do that, you are contributing to society, and you are also contributing to the world in ways that you may not be aware of. And that's what we're doing together this evening. So I've got one more thing I want to do with you, and then I'm going to do a few questions, and I'm going to share just a little bit more. But I hope that you don't mind doing this, but I think what I'd like to do now is for us to come together for just about 5 minutes and use our collective heart, focus, care, and intention to help make life a little better for all the people in the world who are going through this transition. To do that, I want to do a meditation called density dissipation. It'll be a heart-focused meditation in a sense, and I'll read some steps to you along the way. So I hope you'll do that with all of us right now. So I'd like you to get comfortable and close your eyes and let me lead you through this. Let me set it up by saying this. Radiating coherent love, care, and compassion that helps to dissipate clouds of energetic density. This focused care helps to comfort the hearts of people, facilitate quicker adjustments created by shock and emotional disarray. Radiating heart coherent energy is one of the highest forms of service we can do for the people, the planet, and ourselves. Please center yourself in the heart and breathe appreciation. Warm the heart and increase your heart coherence. It also brings in more light and healing into your system. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for that. Open your eyes now. A little time to use our heart, the intelligence of the heart, and our care and love. Home service benefits humanity, the planet, and especially ourselves. Thank you for your participation in that. I will take a few comments or questions. Type in there on the chat box before we close. Thank you so much from Lisa, New Mexico, Denning, New Mexico. Anyone else, please? No, thank you. I purchased the book and assume info is in here as per the session, etc. Which book did you get, Lisa? Type that in for me if you would. You mentioned a book. We have a brand new book that came out yesterday. I mentioned at the beginning of our session. It's the first book we published at HeartMath in over a decade. We did it a little differently. We released it direct to people. Bypassed the publishers this time. We went direct to the publishers, and it's sold on Amazon. You get it in Kindle, or they'll be print on demand for you. Another thing that's unique about it is that we wrote it as a team. It's written by Doc Childry, and he's our founder. I'm an author in the book. Dr. Roland McCready, the director of research, is another author, and so is Deborah Rosman. Deborah Rosman is the CEO of HeartMath and another HeartMath author. So there are four of us that contributed to this book. And the way that I see it is it captures our individual expression in a collaborative style, which I think represents actually the new paradigm that we're seeing in the world today. I'm going to read a little more here. The name of that book is Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. And that's our newest book. You can get it on Amazon. Okay, so I feel much calmer after that meditation. What was the name of your book again? Well, I just did that. Also, will we have access to the replay of this video? I don't know about that. That would be something that that a moderator could probably comment on. Hopefully you will. Hopefully you'll have access to it. But let me summarize a little where we are and what I've tried to do tonight. In the beginning, I recognized and acknowledged that you were giving up some of your Saturday night to do this, to be together. And I wanted to provide as much information as I could that can make a difference in your life in some positive way. And I shared a little bit about myself, which, give you some context, what I represent and why I felt I was qualified to be here this evening with you. We talked about the world, the global situations that we're in, the opportunity, the challenges, many things there, and the dimensional shift, and broke that down into three various dimensions. But the ranges of fourth is something I emphasized. So where we're trying to go as a global society, we did quick coherence. Very simple technique, brings you into coherence very quickly. From there, we went to some science, understanding heart, brain, body science, understanding the intelligence of the heart, what it means, what it feels like, but then the scientific underpinning to support its existence. We went from there, on into looking at emotion and the importance of emotion and the need to learn to better regulate it, but also the capacity we have to do it. And I shared the attitude breathing technique with you along the way in that. Between all that, though, we talked about inner ease, the state of inner ease, the state Awareness and consciousness is a gift from the universal source that's become the underpinning to everything that I do in my spiritual growth. We had an experience of that. Then I shared with you about global coherence, about this interconnectivity between us and all living systems, and some of the interesting research that we're doing here at HEARTMATH to unfold more understanding of that. And the last thing we did was all come together in that way, collective energetic field environment, and shared that in ways to burn off some of the densities happening in the planet and to make life better for others. That's been their program tonight. So I've enjoyed being here. I hope that you felt it was worth your time and your attention to be here this evening, and that you'll take something from tonight and carry it forward, and it will make a difference in your life. I appreciate you for who you are and for taking the time to pursue this sort of thing. It's folks like you that really do represent the hope for our world. So with that said, let me see if there are any more comments or questions before we sign off. I want to make sure everybody feels complete. There's somebody talking about the book. Yes, Heart Intelligence from Amazon, $14.95, great price. So grateful. Thank you so much. That's from Lisa. Any other comments and or questions? Let me please take those now so we feel like we've really had a well-rounded, complete program this evening. I thank Portal to Ascension for hosting programs like this and for having me, giving me the privilege and the honor of sharing the work of HEARTMATH, things that are most meaningful to me in my life. I don't have any more questions or comments right now, so let me just say that we're all going through this together, these changing times, and we're all on this magnificent adventure. There will be ups and there will be downs on the global scale. When all that happens, always go back to your heart. Never lose your heart. Never lose your hope. Recognize that we're moving in a magnificent direction into something new, unlike anything we've ever seen before. To me, the key to accessing that lies here with your own best friend in the center of your chest. And as you make contact with that, with the intelligence of your heart, you can experience fulfillment that will exceed even your greatest expectations. And that, my friends, is my wish for you. So with that said, I'm going to sign off now. Have a great Saturday night. Wish you all the best and take care. The name of the
Thank you.
Other...
Thank you, Howard. And it's Peter here again. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation very much. And again, Howard, really, your material is very, very, very valuable and contentful. And every human has a heart, I assume, right? Every human that's walking probably has a ticking heart.
Everybody's got a good one in there somewhere, and it's just a matter of dusting it off and finding it. And that's basically all we try to do to HEARTMATH, help people find something they already have within themselves.
Yeah, personally, I've been studying this kind of knowledge for a while, and it's very powerful. What I do is sometimes when I run into a situation, I don't, after my brain has thought about it, I feel it with my heart. And sometimes that actually gives me a more clearer path, a decision.
Intuition, which is associated with heart, is often experienced more as a feeling than as thought. We sense something's right, or we should do something or not do something. It's a sensing that we have. And so the heart plays a big role in all of that in terms of its intelligence capacity. Connects us with that field of information that's called intuition. One question I had here, what was the name of the other book? The other book that I wrote was called The HEARTMATH Solution. It's become a classic. It's considered to be the most definitive work on heart intelligence. And it's become a classic book, really read by hundreds of thousands of people all around the world. So it's been quite a journey for me just in having that book, which was written a long time ago, but seems to be, for many people, as relevant or more relevant today than it was when we wrote it. So that's that. So again, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank everybody. And I guess, do you have a website, Howard, or your personal website?
HeartMath.com to see most of the products and things. Go to heartmath.org to find the research and also to find information there and materials and things to use with families and children. So heartmath.com for your products and training and all that. You can become a HeartMath coach. You can become a HeartMath trainer. There's a training program for health professionals. Lots of things that are there at heartmath.com or heartmath.org. The .org is the nonprofit site. and it's loaded with information, free information, a lot of it. And again, they focus on the underserved and on children and families and on the scientific research. So between those two sites, you can have a lot of fun.
All right, thank you very much. And everybody, real quick, just would like to tell you about some of our upcoming webinars. More immediately, tomorrow we have Dr. Stephen Greer presenting live from the Conscious Life Expo, a very exciting presentation called Cosmic Cultures in the New Era of Universal Peace. He'll be talking about the different galactic beings that exist and how important universal peace is besides world peace. And on the following weekend, we have a 4-day intensive with Dr. Stephen Greer about contact, remote viewing, and ambassador training. And you can see all the details for that on our website. You can also get that per day on a per day viewing basis. And on February 28th, we have Before History, the Hidden Origins of Civilization, with Jamie Janover, the ambassador for Nassim Herman. So please check out our website, portaltoascension.org, and you can also find us on Facebook,